From stories around the world to stories here at home, this is the National News Broadcast. A pleasant evening. I'm Dilanjali Ananda.
And I am Tilina Udayaratna. We begin with a look at the headlines for tonight. Additional allocations to the increased number of university recruits. A criteria pertaining to COVID-19 burials have been finalized. The police suspect connected to the female corpse found in Dam Street commits suicide. The Presidential Committee on the Easter Sunday attack questions 3 high-ranking security officials. An air display in connection with the 70th anniversary of the Sri Lanka Air Force. Protests in India against the military rule in Myanmar. And on your top local story this evening, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has given instructions to provide additional allocations to enhance facilities of the additional number of students recruited to universities. An additional 10,588 students have been admitted to the universities this year. A special discussion in this regard was conducted between the University Grants Commission, Vice Chancellors and the Prime Minister at Templetrees yesterday. 41,000 students have been admitted to the universities this year. Chairman of the University Grants Commission, Senior Professor Sampath Amaratunga, said that it was the first time since independence that a highest ever intake of 10,588 students have been recorded. Professor Amaratunga also said that 479 students have been admitted to the medical faculties. This admission equals to providing academic facilities to students in 4 new medical faculties. An additional 5 billion rupees are needed for physical and human resource management in the university system. The Prime Minister has instructed to release these additional funds under several stages, in addition to the regular allocations for the education of university students. He has also informed to convey him the appropriate methodology in the release of funds to the university system upon joint discussions between the Treasury and the University Grants Commission. Professor Sampath Amaratunga has also pointed out that the expensive cooperation of the students as well as the staff has been extended for the continuous conducting of university systems in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. Minister of Education Professor G.L. Pires has stated that a program has to be implemented on behalf of the students who have secured distinction passes but who are unable to gain university admission based on the Z score. Vice Chancellor of the Kotalavala Defence University, Major General Milinda Pires, said that if the government provides allocations, it would be possible to implement a remedial program to admit these students to the Kotalavala Defence University. Accordingly, the Prime Minister has instructed the Minister of Education to submit a memorandum to the Cabinet in this connection. And in the meantime, other officials who have attended the meeting included Prime Minister's Secretary Gamini Senarath, Secretary to the Ministry of Education Professor Kapila Pereira, Director General of the National Budget Department S.D. Jude Lukshan, Prime Minister's Additional Secretary Chaminda Kularatna, Secretary to the University Grants Commission Professor Priyantha Premakumara and Vice Chancellors of all universities. The Postal Department has taken measures to distribute to the homes of the patients 1.7 million parcels of clinical medicine during the coronavirus pandemic period. These were types of drugs issued by the government hospitals for patients of non-infectious diseases. This was revealed at a discussion held at the Postal headquarters under the leadership of Minister Dr. Kehelia Rambukwella yesterday. All trade union representatives affiliated to the Department of Post were represented and present at the meeting. The people had experienced difficulties in arriving at hospitals to obtain clinical medicine during the period of the coronavirus pandemic. It was due to this reason that the department had commenced a service to send the medicine to the doorsteps of the patients. Postmaster General Rohana Ratna said that by yesterday it has been possible to deliver around 1.7 million parcels to the patients. Minister Dr. Kehelia Rambukvella on this occasion has also commended the commitment of the postal workers during the pandemic time, disregarding the threat confronted by them. The minister has also stated that these officials should be given prominence in handing over the coronavirus vaccine. He has also stated that all measures will be taken to resolve all problems hitherto remaining unresolved in the postal service. The recruitment process will be carried out without causing injustice to anybody. Proper attention will also be focused on other disputes, including salary anomalies. Meanwhile, under the program to implement the official language policy, the program to provide language proficiency to around 20,000 officials of the Postal Department, this has commenced yesterday. Among those who have attended the discussion included Secretary to the Ministry of Mass Media, Jagat P. Vijayveera, Chairman of the National Language Education and Training Institute, Jampati Hinkanda, and Deputy Postmaster General Rajitha Ranasinghe. Minister Dr. Kehelia Rambukvella said that he finds that the present-day postal service is a medium that is able to fulfill a significant service to the nation. The minister has promised to make an analysis of the situation in due course.
The Presidential Committee appointed to study and take measures regarding the facts stated in the Presidential Commission report on the Easter Sunday attack has met today. The meeting was presided over by Chairman of the Committee, Minister Chama Rajapaksa. The other members of the committee are Ministers Johnston Fernando, Uday Gamanpilla, Prasanna Ranatunga and Rohita Abbegunawardena. Measures have been taken to arrest 731 persons and to file cases against 291 persons. Statements have been recorded today from 3 high-ranking security officials.
An air display in connection with the 70th anniversary of the Sri Lanka Air Force has commenced at the Golf Race Green in Colombo this afternoon. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa presided over the event. In addition to the aircrafts of the Sri Lanka Air Force, the aircraft named Sarang Surya Kiran and Tejas of the Indian Air Force also took part in the performance. The air drill was highlighted with the displays of 24 aircrafts of the Sri Lankan Air Force and the Indian Air Force. A special guest at the occasion was Indian High Commissioner Gopal Bagle.
Look at the skies above you right now.
He's turning left with max rate to get the angles right for a quick and lethal burn.
විශේෂයෙන්ම තේජස් ගුවන් යානය ඔබ ඉදිරියේ ඒ ගුවන් සංදර්ශනය ඔබට ඉදිරිපත් කිරීමට සූදානම්.
He now holds off with red eyes and positions for the next maneuver.
Approaching in India formation from your right, paying compliments to the indomitable spirit of the Sri Lankan Air Warriors.
The other special guests at the occasion were Western Province Governor, Marshal of the Air Force Roshan Gunatilaka, State Minister Lohan Rattatta, President's Chief Advisor Lalit Veeratunga, Secretary of Defence, commanders of the 3 armed forces, the IGP and the commanders-in-chief of the Air Forces of India and Bangladesh.
To all the beautiful ladies who are witnessing the
Well, a discussion between Commander-in-Chief of the Indian Air Force, Air Chief Marshal Rajesh Kumar Singha Badavuriya and Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa took place at Temple Trees today. The Indian Air Chief, who arrived in the island to participate in the 70th anniversary celebrations of the Sri Lanka Air Force, called on Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa on the sidelines of his visit. During the talks, he pledged continuous assistance to the Indian Air Force to Sri Lanka. The long-standing defence cooperation between Sri Lanka and India stretches to the fields of fighting terrorism, drug racketeering and marine security. The Indian Air Chief further said that India continues to extend assistance to train Sri Lankan Air Force officials and that the bilateral cooperation between the two countries in the field of defence could be further expanded.
The Jaffna Civil Organization Circle says that leaders of the caliber of Vigneshwaran, who had not spent money provided by the central government to the Provincial Council for the welfare of the Tamil people in the north, have no right to talk on human rights in Sri Lanka. The Jaffna Civil Organization Circle has handed over a memorandum against the Geneva proposals to the United Nations office today. Thereafter, a group of representatives of the Jaffna Civil Organization Circle has arrived at the Sri Dalada Maligawa in Kandy this afternoon and venerated the sacred relic. They have stated that the majority of the people in the country are Sinhalese Buddhists. Therefore, the winning of the hearts of the majority is important to provide solutions to the problems of the Tamil people. The delegation also said that they have commenced a walk from Point Dondera to Point Pedro and also venerated sacred places of Buddhist worship.
British Conservative Party politician Lord Naseby criticises the report on the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Council in Geneva for disregarding the heinous crimes committed by the LTTE during the conflict period, while neglecting the efforts taken by Sri Lanka for the reconciliation process. He made these remarks while addressing the webinar conference titled Responding to the Report of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights on Sri Lanka, which was held recently.
Then we come to war crimes. We're told that the recruitment of child soldiers is a key issue. It is, because there are no child soldiers in the Sri Lankan armed forces. Just says both sides. Well, it doesn't. That's inaccurate. There were none in the armed forces. They were recruited by the Tigers, and UNICEF says over 5,000 of them. That's a huge number. And they also say that the vast majority of people who fought for the LTTE, the vast majority killed, were the child soldiers. And yet, here we have in the UK, the lady who was actually one of the organisers of recruiting child soldiers on the ground in Sri Lanka. And it's recorded on a BBC programme on October the 23rd, 1991 at 21:30 hours. There we have it. Then, of course, we go to the disappearance of a reference to 11 aid workers in 2008-2009. Yes, that's bad. But there's no mention of the 600 police who gave in on instructions from the Prime Minister of the day. They gave in the Eastern Province, handed over to the LTTE, and were all murdered. Then there are allegations of credible and indiscriminate shelling of hospitals. We all know that the government of Sri Lanka offered no-fire zones, refused. Then the Tigers put their guns right next to the hospitals. That in itself is a war crime. And the rules of war dictate that if somebody fires a gun at you, you have the right to fire back. And there's an interesting quote from Ambassador Blake on that. Then there's the one that Miliband took about humanitarian supplies. Well, it wasn't the fault of the armed forces of Sri Lanka that the LTTE decided that they would no longer guarantee safety for the supplies coming in, driven by UN workers. So that obviously reduces the amount that comes in. But nevertheless, at the end of the war, the go-downs or the warehouses were reasonably full of the normal supplies, simply because you, quite rightly as a country, because of the monsoons, you insist that the civil servants have the basic in their warehouses, in the local government, have sufficient supplies for 6 months. And there were supplies of all the needs in these warehouses. Problem that the Tigers were not allowing sufficient food and wherewithal for the poor people who've been driven out of Jaffna. 250,000 or thereabouts, a huge number. My last 3 visits to Sri Lanka, I've been and talked to the ICRC, the International Red Cross. Different person each time. I asked a simple question. Have you seen, as the Red Cross, any sign of torture as defined by Geneva? Every one of them, all 3 different people, has said, no, Lord Naseby, we see no sign. Yes, we are in all the important places, the courts, the prisons, the immigration entry. No, we've seen no torture. Criticism that nothing had been done on a number of issues in the last 12 months. Well, hasn't anybody in Geneva noticed that there is a pandemic? My goodness, what a disaster's hitting the world. How on earth could anybody make any progress on any of these issues?
The epidemiology unit says that more than 553,821 persons have been vaccinated under the COVID-19 inoculation program. The vaccination program has been carried out for the 34th day today. 44,546 persons were vaccinated yesterday. Vaccination of the residents in the Gramanilodari divisions, Kotuvegoda and Kalapalu have taken place for the third day today at the Talangaman Regional Hospital. Health divisions say 2,600 persons in the area have already been inoculated. More than 1,000 persons have been vaccinated today. Inoculation program in the Atturugiri area has carried forward for the third day today at the Atturugiri Regional Hospital. 2,222 persons were vaccinated by yesterday. Today, 1,200 persons were inoculated. Provision of the vaccines to people in the Gramanilodari divisions of Kohelbaddara and Kohelbaddara East in the Madalgamu division of Health in Minuangudas has taken place at the Bodhidruma Rama Viharya in Kehelbaddara. 1,200 persons in the Katukurunda Gramanilodari division have also received the vaccine at the Jayananda Ramaya in Boduvita today. The number of recoveries from COVID-19 has crossed the milestone of 80,437 today. It is the percentage of 95.67. Another 3,155 COVID-19 patients were under treatment at various treatment centers. 3,923 have left the hospitals in the past 7 days after recovering from the virus. Another 417 fully recovered persons have left hospitals today. 9,947 PCR tests have been conducted yesterday. A total of 2,137,102 PCR tests have been conducted so far in the country. 7 more COVID-related deaths were reported yesterday. The victims were residents of Colombo 15, Colombo 5, Colombo 2, Piliantala, Pilimatalava and Galevela. A protest has been lodged today against the decision to bury the COVID-19 fatalities in the Irantiv Island. The people in the area, social organizations and fishing societies were engaged in the agitation. The protesters said that the burial would create an impact on their livelihood. The protesters have filled up the pits prepared to bury the COVID dead.
Now, taking a look at the coronavirus global situation, it has killed over 2.55 million people and infected over 114.8 million globally. Brazil's rampant coronavirus outbreak has become a global threat that risks spawning new and even more lethal variants. Experts warn as the country suffered its deadliest day of the pandemic. Brazil yesterday posted its highest number of deaths from COVID-19 in a single day as political infighting exacerbated the country's health crisis and the pace of its vaccination rollout faltered. More than 1,640 people died from COVID-19 yesterday, surpassing the previous single-day high of 1,595 deaths, recorded in late July 2020. More than 257,000 people have died of the disease in Brazil, making it the deadliest outbreak in the world after the United States. The COVID-19 pandemic has pushed Brazil's hospital system to the brink of collapse, and state governors have joined together to buy vaccines and bypass the federal government, which has been slow to roll out its vaccine program. Roughly 10.64 million people have been diagnosed with COVID-19 since the pandemic began, with 59,925 new cases reported yesterday. A record number of coronavirus infections have been reported in Ukraine over the past 24 hours, while the quantity of lethal cases remain consistently high. A total of 3,486 people were hospitalized in the past day, the highest number since the epidemic hit the country last year. The number of hospitalizations remained below 2,000 during the peak of the epidemic in late 2020, but began to rise in late winter during the second wave of the epidemic. A total of 7,235 new cases were registered over the past 24 hours, with 185 deaths. Ukraine has reported more than 1.36 million coronavirus cases and nearly 26,400 deaths so far. Meanwhile, South Korean authorities have initiated investigations on the deaths of two people after a media report said the pair with pre-existing conditions died within days of receiving the AstraZeneca vaccine. A 63-year-old nursing home patient with cerebrovascular disease and a person in their 50s with a cardiac disorder and diabetes have been identified as the victims. Japan's government plans to extend a state of emergency over the coronavirus for Tokyo and 3 neighboring prefectures by 2 weeks until the 21st of March. While new cases have fallen significantly from a peak in early January, Tokyo said the pace of decline had slowed, expressing concern that it may not be enough to lift restrictions. Meanwhile, the United States is working with allies Japan, India and Australia on a plan to distribute COVID-19 vaccines in Asia to counter the influence of China, a foreign newspaper reported today. In recent weeks, the White House has held talks with other members of the Quad, a diplomatic and security initiative between the countries, according to the report. In the meantime, millions of shots from the global COVAX scheme arrived in Nigeria, Angola and DRC as African countries ramped up their vaccine rollouts. While the continent's most populous country, Nigeria, received almost 4 million jabs, and Sub-Saharan Africa's largest nation by area, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, received 1.7 million. Last week, Ghana and the Ivory Coast were the first African countries to receive vaccines from COVAX, which is aiming to supply 2 billion doses by the end of the year. Richer countries have surged ahead with vaccines, while many poorer nations still wait for deliveries. And in the meantime, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has given instructions to the relevant divisions today regarding streamlining people's services being implemented through government institutions with the objective of resolving inter-institutional dispute. He has given orders in this connection, participating in a meeting of the ministry officials held at the auditorium of the Ministry of Urban Development and Housing at the Suhurupaya in Battaramulla. The Prime Minister has also focused special attention on several development projects that have been subject to delays in implementation. Reasons for delays in certain projects were due to distancing of inter-institutional relations. The Prime Minister also instructed officials to take measures to make more efficient their activities through better communication procedures. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has given solutions on this occasion to many disputes in several fields of activities. They included taking measures in connection with unauthorized constructions, implementation of housing projects for people experiencing lesser facilities, incorporation of land belonging to the Urban Development Authority for development purposes, the declaration of protective zones with regard to wetlands and canals, prevention of marine pollution, management of solid refuse and in fisheries harbours and the removal of sand from these harbours, as well as on development of sacred areas. A special emphasis has also been made at the talk regarding the restoration of the Valikada prison and the development projects affiliated to the vehicle parks in Mathura Fort and Kandy. The Prime Minister pointed out that many of the people's service aspirations could be fulfilled through the strengthening of relations between the relevant state institutions. He added that the process of expediting the development of the country has once again been brought back to the condition that had prevailed prior to 2015. State Minister Nalaka Godaheva, Secretary to the Ministry of Urban Development and Housing Sirinimal Pereira, Additional Secretary Dr. NMSB Yaligama and heads of all institutions of the ministry have also attended the talk.
A group of researchers at the Peradari University has been successful in producing the world's first ever face mask that kills the COVID-19 virus 100%. The innovation Respiron Nano AV99 was officially declared in Kandy today. Leader of the research team responsible for the creation of the new face mask was Professor Gamni Rajapaksa. Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena has extended assistance to find a new international market for the unique product. The University Export Institution, with a broad specialist expertise in the export sector, has also extended cooperation. Special attention of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has also been focused on the antiviral face mask. Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena has pointed out that the honour of producing the Respiron Nano AV99 face mask should be entrusted upon the free education of Sri Lanka.
මේ සඳහා ඉල්ලුමක් නිර්මාණය කරන්න කටයුතු.
Vice Chancellor of the Peradeniya University, Deputy Chancellor and all deans of the faculties of the Peradeniya University, as well as professors and lecturers of the university and the face mask research team and the chairperson of the Isabel Lanka Private Limited have also attended the event.
Now in other local news, the corpse of the suspect who has murdered a female youth in Dam Street, Colombo and left her body in a bag in Dam Street, Colombo itself was found in a rubber estate in Badalkumbura, Monaragala this morning. The police, upon identification of the suspect, has arrived at his residence and commenced investigations last evening. The brother of the sister has identified that the corpse without the head was that of her sister. The suspect who has committed suicide was a sub-police inspector named A.M. Premasiri, attached to the Buttala police station. He was a 52-year-old father of 3 children. He was in charge of controlling the coronavirus disease. Investigations have further revealed that he has committed the crime during a 6-day leave attending to an almsgiving of his late mother. Police media spokesman DIG Ajit Rohana said that investigations have revealed that the deceased sub-inspector and his victim, the woman, have arrived at a lodging near the Hangwella bus stand on the night of the 20th of February. It has also been found out that only the sub-inspector had left the lodging with his travel bag around 11 a.m. the following day. When the police searched the house of the suspect, a letter written by him stating of committing the crime has been found. It has also been reported that the sub-inspector has started an affair with the deceased woman while engaging in duties in Ratnapura. The corpse of the woman, stuffed in a bag, was found in Dam Street, Colombo on the 1st of this month. The victim is identified as an unmarried woman named Thilini Yashodhara, a resident of Teppanava in Kuruvita. The brother has identified the body of her sister at the Colombo Judicial Medical Institute this morning. Well, on sports news for tonight, Minister Namal Rajapaksa says that a development in sports is anticipated through a long-term program in the country. He was addressing a media briefing at the Sports Ministry Auditorium this afternoon. The media briefing has been convened to present plans of the National Sports Council for this year. Chairman of the National Sports Council, Mahela Jayawardena, and other committee members were also present on this occasion. The plans have been presented for the future well-being of sportsmen and women in the country and its trainers. The council also focused attention to direct sportsmen and women in the forthcoming national and international competitions. Minister Namal Rajapaksa said that it is important to conduct school sports competition in the interest of the future of sports in Sri Lanka. Well, that's a wrap on tonight's Rupavahini English News. Join us once again tomorrow at the same time. Until then, thanks for watching. Have a great night.
Good night.